Shemai Shemai guys, welcome back to the Life to the Full podcast, the podcast that helps you make the most of your time here on Earth. My name's Dav Morse, I'm your host, and it is a pleasure to be back on the microphone again to bring you part 2 of 41 lessons that I've learnt about life in 41 years of living. If you haven't listened to part 1 yet, just skip back an episode. You get the first 21 lessons right there. But for now, you know what the drill is. We might as well just jump straight into lessons number 22 to 41 that I've learned over the last 41 years. As I said last time, I recently turned 41, and I thought it would be a great exercise, a great thing to do for myself, to create a list of life lessons that I've learnt over the years, maybe to encourage someone who's a little bit younger, maybe to provoke thought in somebody who's a little bit older, but in some way to provide value for everybody who's listening. Like I said, I didn't plan any particular order for these, and I thought to myself I'll do 21 in the first episode and then 20 in the next episode. And as it so happens, number 22 is there's nothing better to live for than God. We all inherently know that living for ourselves is a futile exercise. It is something that we all try, that we all want to do. We just live for ourselves. We live for the moment. We live to satisfy our own desires. We live to earn, to buy things for ourselves. We live to work, to enjoy life ourselves. We put ourselves at the center of our lives. It's natural. It is our human condition. It is our normal propensity to spend time thinking about ourselves. But sooner or later, and it will be for everyone, we realize that living for yourself is just not satisfying. It is not something that brings true joy. It is not something that brings life to the full. We need something, someone to live for that is bigger than ourselves. And I would suggest that God is the most important thing to live for, the most important one that we can devote our lives to. And so if you are a Christian listening to this, I would encourage you, just to chase hard after God, run after God, listen to his voice, listen to his leading. That is where true joy, that is where real life to the full comes. And if you're not a Christian listening to this thinking, oh my goodness, I'm going to skip to the next episode already, then okay, see you in episode 53. But I would encourage you, consider religion, God, hasn't gone away over thousands and thousands of years. Is it something that is inherently built into us, that we want to live for something bigger than us? Consider what that could be. If there is a God, is it worth getting to know him? Number 23, you don't need money to be rich. My 9, it's my grandmother, said to me, I'm the richest woman in the world. And I remember thinking, I was quite young at the time, thinking, really? The richest woman in the world? She went on to explain, she had 4 children, she had 6 grandchildren, 3 great-grandchildren, and they all loved coming to spend time with her. She had incredible social connections. She lived in a little village, and people would just call in on a daily basis, people from around, friends that she'd met. And she had this rich social connection with her community, her family, that she valued far more than money. And having observed that and getting older now, I realized that she was right. You don't need a lot of money. She didn't have a lot of money. What she did have was rich relationships. And so I'd encourage everybody listening to this to consider the relationships that you have. What can you do to nurture those relationships? Number 24, life lessons that I've learned. The importance of thinking like a statistician. And what do you mean, Dav? Thinking like a statistician? Well, let me try and explain. I make almost all of my life decisions are based on what is the probability that something will go well and what is the probability that something will go badly, coupled with what are the benefits if it goes well and what are the problems if it goes badly. The mathematical term for this is expected value. So if I'm faced with two decisions and the probability of a good outcome is high, but the benefit isn't that great, and the probability of something bad happening is quite low, but the disaster scenario is really bad, then I'll judge my decision based on that. So, for example, house insurance. I have house insurance because even though the probability of something going wrong with the house burning down, or lightning striking, I don't actually know if that counts in my insurance policy, but yeah, just in case something really bad happens to that house and I have to start again, the probability is quite small, but the problem is quite big if it does happen. It's all about risk reward, and it's something that I'm trying to teach my children. So that's why I have house insurance. I don't have phone insurance because, again, the probability is probably higher than something bad happening to my house, but the downside is limited to, whatever it is, £600 for a new iPhone, and the inconvenience. So I don't insure that because the disaster scenario isn't that bad. Whereas from the positive point of view, it used to be that the probability that Bitcoin might succeed was quite small, but if it does succeed, then the upside is potentially massive. I do feel like the probability that Bitcoin's succeeding is increasing every day with more and more people adopting it. But the upside is massive. It's called asymmetric risk reward. We want to find something where the probability of something bad happening is quite small, and we want to minimize the effects of that bad thing happening and maximize the upside, even if the potential for the upside isn't that great. Another way this applies is to analyzing decisions. Now, we should all make decisions based on the knowledge that we have to the best of our ability. And if, for example, the decision works out well, if we made the right decision, then the outcome doesn't actually matter in that sense, because variation comes into life. We can't predict everything that might happen. So if I think to myself, right, the probability of a bad tenant trashing my rental property is quite small, and the upside is, probably going to happen, probably going to keep getting rent coming in, then I'm going to make a decision to buy a rental property. Now, that's the decision that I've made in the time based on the information that I have, and that is a good decision regardless of whether the outcome works out or not. And that's quite a hard thing to understand, but understanding variation in life is vital. And that's going to lead us on to one of the lessons later on. Hit me up on Instagram, send me a DM, David Morse or Life to the Full podcast, if you want to ask anything about that. Number 25, compound interest is incredible. If you don't understand compound interest, if you don't know anything about compound interest, it's the idea that if you make small investments at the beginning, then the interest is added to that, and then every year that goes by, the interest is added. So the amount of interest that gets added every year increases until you get to a point where the interest just outweighs any contributions that you might make, and time is the most important thing about that. But it also applies to other areas of our lives. So keep doing the small things that will benefit you. Keep doing the learning, keep reading, keep track of your habits, keep doing little things that might seem to not be making a difference in the short term, but over the long term will have great benefit. Number 26. This is a controversial one for some people maybe, but all of the lessons of how to live life and how to get life to the full are found in the Bible. I could go through all of this list and probably match up a Bible verse to it. There is so much wisdom in the Bible on how to treat other people, how to care for other people, how to give generously, how to look after people, how to love your neighbor, how to succeed financially. And we don't realize, but everything that we need to know about life is found in that book. Number 27. I can trust God to never let me down. This is something that brings an incredible calm, an incredible peace to my life, to know that whatever the circumstances of life, whatever goes on in my life, whatever difficulties I face, I can trust that God will never let me down. Number 28, linked to compound interest, delayed gratification. Delaying gratification means saying no to something now in order to have something better in the future. And this can apply to almost any area of your life. Saying no to 3 donuts today to have a healthier body in the future. Saying no to buying a new TV or buying a new games console because in the future you can use that money for something better, and in the future the time that you spent not playing video games and not playing or watching TV and instead doing something creative will bring benefits down the line. Number 29, this is a fun one. We are all made for adventure. Stepping out and taking a risk is way more fun than playing it safe. We think so often that the safe way is the best way. We think by saving money in savings accounts that we are being careful, but in fact, inflation will erode the purchasing power of that, so you are guaranteeing yourself that you will lose money. And if you stick in a job that you think is safe, you are in fact guaranteeing that you will miss out on the adventure that life brings, the excitement that comes from walking an untrodden path, the excitement and the adventure that comes from forging your own way, making the most of your own life, rather than letting life happen to you. Number 32. This is a lesson that I learnt as a very small boy. I can't have been more than 5 or 6 years old, from my dad. He said to me, if you find yourself worrying about something, ask yourself, can I do anything about this? If you can, then you should definitely do something about it. Change the situation. Make the most of what you can do. But if you can't do anything about it, you can stop worrying about it. It's outside of your control. So control the controllables and don't sweat the uncontrollables, because there's nothing you can do about it. Number 31. Planned discomfort. Put yourselves in situations where things are difficult on purpose, where things are challenging on purpose. It builds resilience. When you're faced with tough situations, when you can't control it, at least you control your response and you know that you can get through. Something as simple like a cold shower every day turns you into the kind of person that does hard things, turns you into the kind of person that embraces difficulty, embraces the hard things. Turning the shower onto cold pretty much every day is a challenge. It takes overcoming your mental emotions, overcoming your mental voice that says, you don't need a cold shower. You can overcome that voice. Eating for £1 a day is what I did with my family a little while ago. It forced us into thinking, could we go into survival mode? Could we survive on £1 per person per day if we absolutely had to? And, spoiler alert, we did. It was not fun for the second half of the week particularly. It was not easy. The kids did pretty well, actually. It was actually Rachel and me that struggled a little bit towards the ends because we were the ones going hungrier so that we could give stuff to the kids. But it was a challenge and it was tough, but it was great to know that if we had to, we could survive on very little. We did a day without electricity recently just to see what are the holes in our preparation for power outages. What could we not do? What do we have to fix? What do we have to think about so that if the power does go down for real, things aren't going to affect us that much? Planned discomfort makes you resilient to when real discomfort kicks in. Number 32. You have far more control over your own life than you think, but you don't have ultimate control. Control the controllables, prepare for what you can, but realize that ultimately it's all futile if you get hit by a bus. Number 38, realize that your time here on earth is short. That's why I encourage people to make the most of their time here on earth. Number 34, so important, I actually wrote it down twice. Didn't realize that I'd written it as number 10, but be prepared for eternity. Number 35. When I was younger, I used to see the world as black and white, and as I get older, I see more shades of grey. I'm sure that's common for a lot of people, but I've also started to embrace contradictory dichotomies, which seem to be pitted against one another, but in some strange way are actually both true and both the case. One of the secrets to a happy, enjoyable life is to embrace both being content with who you are and what you have, and at the same time striving for more or striving to be better. I actually consider this one of my superpowers in life, to be simultaneously completely content and satisfied with who I am and what I have, and also striving to be better, to have more, to be the best version of myself that I can be. It's easy to think, when you're content with who you are, that you don't need to be worried about becoming a better person, or becoming more generous, or more loving, or more caring. You don't have to bother to do anything to improve yourself. Why would I bother if I'm happy with who I am? But the other side of the coin is, you can be obsessed with getting more stuff, with being better, with having more power, having more influence, having more followers, wanting more and more and more, and yet you never take time to be satisfied in who you are. And it's almost like you're trying to prove yourself to someone else, to prove that you are better than you can be. Being both simultaneously completely content with who you are and what you have, and also striving to be a better version of yourself, is one of the keys to a satisfying life. Number 37. Take your time to develop and critique your own opinions. It's far too easy to go through life taking on other people's opinions, even thinking that they are your own opinions. What are you surrounding yourself with, and what you are listening to can shape your opinions. So it's important to curate that. I did an episode recently on You Are What You Listen To, so check that out. But nothing beats writing or speaking out your own opinions in order to clarify them even better if you can do it with other people to really debate to clarify your opinions. Number 38, listen to people that disagree with you. This goes hand in hand with the last lesson. One of the best ways to understand what you think and what you believe is to listen to people that disagree with you or even have the opposite point of view. Try to understand why they believe what they believe. Likelihood is they're not crazy. You could probably learn something. Number 39 goes along with 37. Curate what you listen to. What you watch, what you read, what you listen to shapes who you are. I've got a podcast episode on You Are What You Listen To, so check that out. Be careful to feed your mind good, healthy, wholesome things. Things that will encourage you, things that will help you grow, things that bring you joy and satisfaction. If you are filling your mind listening to, watching negative things, anxiety-inducing things, people hating each other, ask yourself, how is this affecting me? Am I feeling more miserable? I gave up watching the news many years ago. I grew up in a household where the news was always on. The news was on at breakfast. The news was on at 10 o'clock. The news was on at 6 o'clock. I had to have at least 2 fixes of news every day. But since I've come to notice, and particularly more recently, with politicized news, splitting people, giving one side of a two-sided debate, I don't feel like it does anything to build me up. 99.9% of the news is outside of my control, and as you probably know, I don't tend to care about things that are outside my control. Number 40. A more recent one following many discussions with my wife about her therapy work that she does with clients and reading the book What Happened to You by Dr. Bruce Perry and Oprah Winfrey. Instead of asking, what's wrong with you? Try asking, what happened to you? We all face negative behavior from other people. Instead of asking what's wrong with this person, try asking what happened to this person, and it starts to build empathy and understanding of another person's worldview. Number 41, give your children unconditional love. It's the key to secure attachments and to helping them flourish into well-rounded adults who have healthy attachments and are able to form healthy relationships as they grow older. The more and more I look around at society, the more and more I see the breakdown of relationships and the breakdown of people wanting to make relationships. And it comes down to not being able to form relationships because of attachment problems that they've had in their childhood. The lack of unconditional love is staggering. Give your children unconditional love. And then, just to finish off, a little bonus one. Whenever you're faced with a situation, ask yourself, what are you optimizing for? When you know what you're optimizing for, it will guide the rest of your choices. I feel like that one deserves a podcast episode entirely of its own. So there we have it, 41 life lessons that I've learnt in 41 years of living. I do hope you've enjoyed it. I do hope you've learned something. I do hope you've taken away something that you can apply to your own life. The reason I do this is so that people get benefit from it, so that people are encouraged to change little things in their life, little things that will help them live life to the full. If you've got any questions, if you've got any pushback, I would love to hear from you. Check me out on Instagram, Life to the Full Podcast, or David Morse. I love hearing from you guys. It is a pleasure every time that I do. So yeah, hit me up. Till next time, Peace out.